Okay, so welcome to your first session in our Son-Rise program. If you've made it this far, you've already done a phone interview with me and you've been in the informational meeting where we meet each other in person and you learn more about the program as a whole and watch a video about before, during, and after and things like that. So if you're here, you are learning how to actually interact with my daughter who has autism, and our session is going to be about 2.5 hours long, and you're going to be going in and out. You're first going to do this training for about half an hour. Then you're going to go in the playroom and work directly with my daughter using the things that you can recall from this half hour. And we're going to videotape you and or just directly watch you, and then we're going to train you based on what we saw in the videotape, like what you were doing, sort of like emphasizing what you were already doing that was helpful and supportive, or quote right, or and then other things that were things that, let's say, you weren't doing because you can't do everything all the time your first time usually. So we will be doing that later. The main things we want to focus on here are what I call the bread and butter of our program, meaning what you'll be doing most of the time in most of your sessions, even no matter how super developed you are and all the additional things that you'll learn. The basic 4 things we do are there all the time, and they're foundational to our program. And there's actually one additional thing before I jump into the 4 things we emphasize. There's one other thing which I would just call professionalism and reliability. And actually, I developed this little pyramid. I said this is a very brief version of it, but at the very bottom of it, it says professionalism and reliability, because if you're not really reliable and professional, I'll describe what that means in just a minute. It just makes it hard to manage you, and we can't have a bunch of people that are hard to manage at the same time, or I will end up spending all my time managing people instead of actually helping my daughter recover, helping learn how. So really briefly, being professional and reliable means that if you say you'll be here at a certain session time, that you'll actually be here at that session time, and I won't have to be calling you to remind you, that kind of thing. Additionally, you will respond to texts and phone calls swiftly. And maybe not like immediately, but I have people that will text me back within a minute usually, or 2 minutes, and then I know if we can rearrange people, because we only have one person thick. It's like having, it's like, there's a saying with the thin blue line, with the police and everything. Like, we only have a thin, I don't know what kind of color, a thin line between having a program and not having a program, and it's one person. So if one person is out, like if somebody gets up that morning and their car doesn't start, we have no program for those 3 hours or 2 hours. So we would get the next person and say, can you take their session, and maybe they'll get their car working by 1:30, and then we just go whoop, and we're off and running. Somebody shows up, and that's how I want to run the program. If you don't call or text me back till like 4 hours later or the next day, it's like you're not even part of the team as far as being able to swap. You lose a big chunk of your availability and your value. So you'll eventually find a way off the team. If you call with less than 3 hours notice, we typically can't replace you on that session, and that is a problem. I call it late notice, even though it sounds like 3 hours is a lot, unless it's an emergency. Finally, if you don't call and don't show, which means that I don't know what to do at that time, I'm kind of holding it open for you, like it's a contract, like you say you'll come, I'll say I'll hold it for you. Then I feel like I can't call the next person. I start dithering about doing that. Then I might eventually, half an hour in, figure out to do that. And it pretty much, I feel like I am getting the bad side of that. And so if you do that, like that's no call, no show pretty much means you either lose some of your sessions or all of your sessions, and you'd have to come back on the team as an alternate. So that's just really briefly, and don't come sick. Call me if you're sick, and we'll talk some more about our illness policy. We have a policy document that I want you all to look at, and I'm going to be handing it out, and there's a media release so you don't have issues with if we use your video online, and that's all going to be coming out in, let's say, the next month. Okay, this is our schedule. I just thought I'd show it to you guys. We have sessions 4 times a day. We have a 10:30, a 1:30, a 4:30, and a 7:30, and it goes 7 days a week. And you'll be getting something like 2 to 5 sessions a week. And some of you will be on as alternates, and that's fine. You just be alternates. And then eventually you may work on the schedule. Okay, so now let's talk about what you're going to do in the room today. Okay, so our program is based on an attitude of love, acceptance, not judging, and being happy with somebody by choice. And that means that you're going to be practicing that attitude with my daughter. There are people who come in here who already know this attitude, live in this attitude. I know I didn't. I came in here completely like using unhappiness to move people and deciding that happy people don't get anything done and things like that. So there's this whole attitude shift I had to go through. You might be somebody, yeah, we have somebody here I'm actually training who I'm going to be handing off, and I also have a second computer because one time one of the computers didn't work. So you may come in here really ready and this is just a piece of cake for you and you're very happy with my daughter, and there are people who go in there and they're just kind of like, oh, she's like saying a funny sound. I don't feel comfortable with that sound. So I don't know which kind of person you'll be. So if you go in there and you find that it's challenging, think about just enjoying yourself in their presence and not judging. Even if you can't, let's say, go to the point of being excited that she's making sound like things like that. Even if you go like, oh, that's the best thing to make that sound, you can be like, oh, I'm not going to judge it. It's what she likes to do. I'm liking her and I'm accepting her, sort of accepting it, but without any need to judge it either direction. Okay. Think about when you go to like a, let me just ask you real quick, do you ever feel like you're happy for very long periods?
Yeah.
Like what are you doing when you're happy? Just really briefly.
Like,
what times are those?
Like when I'm with other people or just doing something I enjoy.
Okay, so let's just pick, let's say when you're with other people. Okay, so are they certain people? Are they like your best friends? Are they like family?
Yeah, friends,
Okay,
family.
friends. Okay, so imagine she's one of these people. Even if you've never been in a room with her before, she's one of these people. Imagine some people tell me like they're real happy all day at a wedding. Imagine you're at the wedding. Whatever helps. If you're with your dogs, you're really happy with your dogs. Imagine you're with your dog. I mean, whatever makes you feel really at ease. So that's the attitude. Do you have any other questions about the attitude?
No.
Okay, and I guess I'll just make a statement if I haven't already said this, but in our program is based on a philosophy that you can choose what emotions you're feeling. Like you can decide if you're going to feel happy or not happy, and you can also pick the beliefs that fuel that. So if let's say you go in there and you think she makes a sound like, and she starts talking to herself and she looks sideways, and you say, oh, that's really weird. Like that, weird has sort of a judgment built into it, or that's not a good behavior for her to be doing. That's a judgment also. You can, by making those judgments, make yourself unhappy. And you can instead say she goes, the same sounds and does the side looking. You can say, oh, that's what she likes to do, take care of herself. I'm glad she's taking care of herself. And you can feel happy. So you can kind of control a lot of that. So we're going to deal more with that later. If you have any challenges, I'm here to help you. We have techniques that help you get in that attitude and stay in that attitude. So like you're not on your own. You won't be like saying, like, you go in there and you be happy. Cut it out. You look at me. We're not going to do that. You're going to actually get supported here. Okay, so that's the attitude. The second thing is an outgrowth of the attitude. It's called joining. It's a technique where if you embrace a person and you love that person, then you also embrace their choices and what they love. And let's say my daughter, she does hand flapping. Okay, so she'll do this. Okay, so she loves that. She probably does, if you put it end to end, 20 minutes of that straight a day. If you actually add each time, probably not that much. But you know what I'm saying? If you added them, she likes that activity. It feels good. She seems really happy doing it. Okay, so if she's really happy doing it, then you could decide, well, you know, she likes this. I like this person, and she likes this. I can do this too. So let's even have you do that right now. It's like, and she leans, she goes, and she does it with a lot of energy, like she's really throwing her hands. It's not just kind of like this. So if you go in there and do this, it's not going to look like you're joining her. She does all these different levels of isms, the really primitive ones that the kids who are severe do, like rocking. She'll do rocking, like I just said, she'll do hand flapping. She'll also get really into a topic and be obsessed with the topic, like the kids who have Asperger's and who are more developed. So she kind of does a mixture of different isms. And so you just kind of keep looking for, is she with me or is she kind of in her own world? Like, is she with me? And so actually, one of the things besides the attitude, if let's say you're comfortable with the attitude, you'll spend most of your time thinking, is she with me? Is she not with me? Is she with me? Is she not with me? If she's with you, then for the time being, until we get to the next section, think of it as just you're going to do whatever you'd normally do with a child her age or similar. So you might, like when you've been babysitting, you would suggest activities. You'd like compliment her artwork. I mean, whatever you would normally do, right? And then take an interest in her, like she's interested in My Little Pony, like her interests. And add things about your life, like, oh, I also like My Little Pony, or I've never seen My Little Pony, whatever's true. And always make it true, because if the truth is really fascinating, she can base her life on what she learns from you. So don't make things up like, oh, I really like My Little Pony, when you've never seen My Little Pony. She'll figure out there's something strange about how you're saying it, you don't know anything about it, and I don't know, just be yourself, but be your true self, okay? Okay, so about the joining, if you're looking for what are the indicators of somebody like being with you or being in their own world, what are some of the things that you notice? Just maybe you can fill in some of these. Like, how do you know right now we're interacting? I'm assuming you think we're interacting.
Yeah.
Right, so
looking at each other, like responding to each other.
Okay, those are the big two. Eye contact and interactive language, or communicative language. And then the other thing is flexibility we talked about. So if I say, can you come sit over here, and you don't, it doesn't feel like we're interacting. You know what I'm saying? It feels like, and she sat there. Oh, we're interacting, right? And so those are the big three in particular. So if you say, come sit over here, and she comes to sit there, even if she's not looking at you or talking to you, and she comes to sit there, you'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you for sitting there. We'll get to celebrating. I'm sorry, it's a habit. But let's stick with the joining. So let's say those things are all not there. She's not looking at you or talking back and forth to you. So you say, look at your necklace, and she might say, that looks like a triangle. And you might say, yeah, it's a triangle. I bought it at Macy's last week. And you could say, I have another one that's a heart. And you look over to her, and she's like staring at the ceiling, and there's no response. Like, it's like you're not there. Not that she says, and doesn't look at you. That would be a response. More like nothing comes back. What I used to do when I had videos of the playroom is I would have the person working with Anna, and when she was isming, I would cover that person, and you could not tell there was anyone in the room. She was just like, and they would be like talking, and it would be like, you can't tell. It's like there's silence in the room as far as she's concerned. So whenever you sense that there's a break off, even in the middle of a sentence, like you could be singing, oh, McDonald, like let's say you guys are doing that song together. We did that for a while. Oh, McDonald had a farm. Yeah. And you realize halfway through, she's like focusing somewhere else. Usually your eye contact is kind of where you're focused. So she's kind of like she's just like, she's looking down at her stomach. Mid-sentence, oh, McDonald had a farm. Then she'll say, yes. Sing it. Oh, thanks for saying that. E-I-E-I. It's like you hit a pause button and then you hit play again. You're back going. But it's like as soon as you feel, and no matter how awkward it is, you could be in the middle of like, oh, and my brother just got married and we were at the wedding and it was so great. And you realize that she is not, you just go like, whatever she's doing. No pajama Sam, put that down. Like you just join whatever she's saying or doing. She has a lot of verbalisms. We'll get to that in a minute. There's a little 5-minute video put out by the Option Institute in the Son-Rise program that's called the Autism Solution. We're going to watch it. It's about a 5-minute video about all these different types of joining. It includes things like, well, I just talked about, like people walking in patterns and staring at the ceiling and people flipping pages of a book. And it'll give you a sense of what to do. I think I will have you do that. One of the most important things to remember, though, before we leave joining is to remember that she comes out. You don't have to keep saying, are you back yet? Hey, I'm giving you a test question. Here, look at my book. Oh, she's not back yet. You don't check in. You just ism until she comes back and says something to you that you can clearly sense that sounds like she's talking to me. She's not talking about elephants and Arthur. She's talking to me like, hey, I see you have a necklace. Then you go, oh, thank you for asking about that. And then you go on with that. The second thing is get your own object. So let's say she's looking at the schedule. Listening to the schedule. You're talking to the schedule. She's doing this. Then pretty soon she's just doing this. To schedule. You don't try to do this to schedule with her. You get your own piece of paper that could sound similar, and you try to do it. Let's say she goes like this. That sounds different than like a gentle twist. And you try to make the thing match the rhythm and the cadence. And if she does some verbalisming, like she does a lot of Hannah Montana. Jackson, cut it out, Jackson, put that down. Dad, Jackson, blah, blah. And you got to do like scolding. Like you may not have to say all the words. You might say, Dad, who's like your brother's name? Do you have a brother?
Yeah.
What's your brother's name?
Grant.
Grant?
Mm-hmm.
Grant, put that down. Hey, Grant. And you may realize halfway through she's saying Jackson. You might switch to Jackson. It doesn't have to be, the important thing is the cadence and all that. Okay, number 3. So we've talked about the attitude and joining. The third thing is you want to have the, let's see, which one do I teach first? Want to position dynamically for, hold on, I'm getting interrupted. Hi, we're recording for YouTube. Can you please stay out for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing is you want to have you want to position dynamically for telling whether she's with you or not with you. Meaning, like you want to make sure that you're not behind her. Why don't you go ahead and get up? We'll do this more. I'm doing a little out of order. I got a little distracted when he came in. But okay, so go ahead and give me your best idea of where your arms would be, where you could see them without having to like be doing this all the time. Like if you had numbers, if I put the number 2 fingers on my hand, There's a point that if I go beyond it, I can't make out that it's 2 fingers. It might be 3, it might be 4, it might be a fist. But when I go in, I can see there are clearly 2 fingers. And it's something like a 90-degree angle. I'll go up in the air like that. Something like, you know what I'm saying? It's like a 90.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? So, and then if you switch to 3 fingers, can you see that you're switching to 3 fingers? Okay, now keep your hands there for a second. It's like, you can come closer so a little more on camera. Okay, just your arms anyway. Okay, so basically your V and my V, you want to have overlapping each other. So if I'm her and I'm looking at you and I'm kind of doing this, I'm zooming like this, right? All of a sudden I go like this. Now you're out of my, like, I'm not even seeing you. I'm seeing this wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you would have to come over here. Actually, don't get on camera. So get your arm. Let's just have your arm be on camera. Okay, so you'd have to keep moving. And she goes like, think of it as like also it's kind of a cone. Okay, so basically beyond a certain point, can you kind of rotate your hands?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't see above or below a certain point. And what will happen is if she goes like this and she's looking at a book on the ground, like she's looking down like this, her cone of vision's there. And if you're going to be sitting up in front of her, she'll see like your knees and your feet. She won't even make out that you're joining her. So you want to get on the floor, lie on your side, just keep with that cone. She lies on her back, like you want to maybe either stand up or if you have like a thing with involving feet, you put your feet in the air, something like that. So we call it mutual peripheral vision. Another way to think of it is there's a table, a round table, and you're, let's say, Anna. You wouldn't want to be, you're Anna. I'm being you. No, let's reverse it. I'm Anna, you be you. That's easier. You be you.
Okay.
Okay, so you wouldn't want to be any closer than the 90 degree. If this is a circular table and we cut it in fourths, and let's say, you can even say it's a clock and I'm like the 12, you wouldn't be any closer than the 3 or the 9. You want to be between the 6 and the 3 and the 6 and the 9 on the other side of the table. So if you're ever over here like next to me, a lot of people make the mistake of like she's sitting on the chair and I'm sitting next to her. Well, you're totally like, it's like sitting next to her at the table and she can't see you. She can see kind of out, but not you, without doing this. And she's not, you don't want her to be doing that. You want her to take in the joining without having to do any kind of a repositioning. And we're going to practice some joining in just a minute, but let's just go on to the next thing. And I'll probably have you practice a little, actually, let's even have you do this a little bit. So you and I are talking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Anna, you're you. And then at a certain point, she's going to start, like, I'm going to be her. I'm going to stare at the penguin. Okay, so you're going to find a way to stare that's off-center. Like, you don't want to be watching me because I am, when I'm zooming, I'm not looking at you. I'm very specifically, purposefully not looking at you. So you don't want to be, like, looking at me because that's not what she's doing. So as a matter of positioning, you don't really want to be directly like this. You want to be offset. So, like, you would kind of offset there. So you, like, stare right there. So it's kind of like you're off the direct 90 of the table. You're a little bit offset. That way, now, if you keep looking there, just keep looking. You can see me fine. Like, let's pretend I'm Anna. You join me. Just go ahead and do what I'm doing. Okay? You might have to glance to see the stuff on her face. She'll do little stuff. She'll pick her up, like her eyelashes and stuff. You have to kind of glance sometimes, but you want to go right back to staring there so you're not, like, looking at her. Otherwise, it's that feeling of, like, you're an animal in the zoo or that guy's staring at you in the bus. And you're like, it's like a guy staring at me. It's not a comfortable feeling. Okay, so that's the thing about positioning. So go sit down one more minute, and we're going to do the last thing. So we talked about the attitude. Joining is an outgrowth of the attitude. Positioning, so you can tell best whether she's in your world or not. So you're not just going on because you're not seeing her and she's not seeing you and stuff like that. And the last thing is when she is with you, let's say she's with you, which is maybe the easiest thing. That's how people normally are. Most kids are always like with you, you know. You're going to be doing what we call celebrating the interaction, which is your most important job. And then some more secondarily, and we'll get more into this later when you're more advanced, we're going to add a lot more on the adding variety, but let's just take those just as a whole so you know. This is sort of the preview of everything you're going to know. And all you got to retain when you go in there is what you retain. But you're going to be, so number one is celebrating that she's doing something interactive, which we talked about, looking at you, talking to you. So let's say you're her and you're looking at me. I'd be like, oh, that's good looking. Thank you for looking. And let's say she keeps looking. Okay, now you would have variety. You'd be like, you know, my cousin has blue eyes like you. And you just think of what you can connect with what's going on. Let's say she's just sitting there. I'd be like, you know, my cousin is also really quiet. And I have a nephew who's really quiet who just sits there sometimes and he just looks at me just like you. Thank you for looking. And let's say she just picks up something. She picks up this rubber band. You'd be like, oh, cool. Can you shoot the rubber band at me? So you're adding something in terms of an activity. Or you could even just say, oh, I love that purple. That looks like my shirt. You know what I mean? You could think of something to extend the conversation, and think of it like this. Think of it like you're in an elevator and the door is broken and you're trapped there for 6 hours or something. Literally, think what would be fun and make it like the funnest 6 hours of your life. In this case, let's say 2.5 hours. Okay, so anything can be fun. You know, you could talk about, like, here I got the nail polishes put on. You could be like, oh my gosh, I can't. I remember showing Anna, like, you cannot read these. They're like microscopic. I was like, Anna, can we look at these on a microscope? Make it fun. Like, anything can be fun. If you decide attitudinally you're going to have fun with something, it doesn't have to be like it does something to you. It comes from inside. Okay, so we talked about the adding variety can be conversationally or can also be like an activity. And I'll just give you one more example. Let's say she likes My Little Pony. So you could talk about, like, she could say, oh, look, she holds up this pony and says, look, did somebody give me Pinkie Pie? And she says some things in that phraseology. It's kind of a question. Oh, yeah, I see Pinkie Pie pony. You could be like, for example, what do you think about horses? Did you ever used to like horses? Do you own a horse? Do you live near a farm? I mean, just...
Yeah, I like horses. I like riding them.
Oh, you actually ride horses?
Not often, but I do like when I have the opportunity.
You ride horses?
Sometimes.
Okay, so this is a perfect example. So, and let's say 9 out of 10 people who ever come here have no interaction with horses, but go some other direction. You could be like, I've ridden horses. I ride horses. And you can even go into what would be a horse that you've ridden? Or an experience. Did you ever ride on a horse that got out of control? Or do you have a horse that's white that you clean every time you visit? I mean...
I rode a brown horse that liked to stop and eat all the grass.
Okay. And what did you have to sit there and you're like kicking it and like doesn't move? Oh, that's a perfect story. She would be just like... She would love that story. And then imagine she didn't, right? There's a good chance that she's actually isming because it's your first session. So if you tell a story like that, you don't be like, oh, I don't tell good stories. Like, no, be like, oh, let me just keep another horse story. Maybe you could say, my brother once had a horse and it got old and we had it put to sleep. That's another story. Or like, I once bought a horse and it cost like $5,000. I had to sell my car. I have no idea. But you have some kind of riches about the horse. Let's just pick one or two more things. So you're going to be visiting for the holiday. You're going somewhere, you're leaving. You can be like, I'm leaving in my car today. I got my car packed. You just tell a story of your life. It's interesting. If you get up this morning and you have a dream about you have a dream about your president, just be like, I woke up this morning and had a dream I was president. Don't go to making anything up. If you really have a dream, it helps to understand the world, how it works. Real dreams people have. I've had people make stuff up, and eventually you have to like ratchet that back because it's not authentic. It's not even really what they're having as their life. And then they eventually have to explain, oh, I didn't really have that happen. Anyway, and then sometimes bad things come of it, like she gets really obsessed with something that happened in the dream and it bothers her. Then you have to eventually say, well, actually, she made it up. And then that kind of undermines your authenticity. Okay, so the four things, excuse me for just a moment, yes?
Still recording?
Yes, I am. Okay, so the four things, just to review, are that you're going to be doing. Number one is I'm going to assume the professionalism, the reliability. Number two is you're going to adopt an attitude by choice of being loving, accepting, non-judgmental, and happy with my daughter. That's number one, and it is foundational to the program. Number two, if you remember only one thing, remember that thing. So remember before we move on. Okay, number two, in there. Always. Number two, when she's in her world, when you discern she's in her world, you join her. When you discern she's with you, you be your regular self, but you're going to do something you may not be used to doing, which is celebrating the interactions. You're probably not used to playing with a child and babysitting, saying, good looking, or I love that you asked me that. That's a great question. Thank you for sitting with me like I asked. Like, that's all stuff you're going to be doing. That's the celebrating the interactions, or you're going to be adding to it verbally or in terms of activities like, thank you for sitting here. Look, now we can like kick our legs. Like you add something, you know what I mean? Or you mention something about, oh, now that you sit there, look, you have a scar on your knee. I have a scar on my elbow. Just add something. Okay, and I think the last thing was positioning. I usually teach in that order. So your positions that you're in my V and I'm in your V, and if she's walking around the room and she's moving, you kind of keep a sense of that mutual peripheral vision. I didn't go into it this time because we're about 24 minutes. It is significant, the amount of the frequency of her coming out jumps when you're in a good position. Even if beyond that you're not missing that she's, let's say, in her world and you go off talking because you're next to her. Beyond that, I've actually done things where I've thought, wow, I'm having trouble seeing her. I must be out of position. We move forward and I'll think right about, and I'll think the word here. I haven't even said it to myself and she'll start talking to me. So there's a really high frequency. It's not minor. It also, the positioning reflects your level of interest. So when you and I are talking, if I'm kind of like this is a good position. You kind of feel like I'm focused on you, but if I'm a little too far away and I'm, looking over here, you don't feel that intimacy. So it also is kind of an invitation. Because that's all 4 things. Don't worry about remembering any of it. What matters is whatever sticks is going to stick. Pick something in every moment that you want to, let's say, pull from. If you have to pick anything, pick the happiness, the attitude. If you can't think of anything else in that room, attitude first. If you can't tell if she's isming or not, pick one. Don't watch and feel like you're observing her. It's either just start joining and realize she's still talking to you, or to start talking to her and celebrating things and then have her say nothing and then go, oh, well, she's isming. That's obvious now, so it makes it more obvious, distinction. So there's nothing to be accomplished in there other than you being happy and enjoying her presence in the time. There's nothing. She doesn't have to talk to you. There's no. I have no chart. Like, she needs to draw this chart. She needs to learn how to make this. You're never going to have that. What matters is you're enjoying her, and that's all there is to it. So I guess that's it. We can go ahead and stop. I'm going to ask you questions and show you the video, but I think that's it for people at home. Thank you very much. Okay, say bye to these people. Bye, people on this camera. Bye. Okay, bye, people on this camera. Thank you for being part of my meeting. Good luck in there.